share with you some of the ideas thinking that we are having in WHO at the moment. Most of my professional life has been after 2000, and I was working in South Africa in 1990, between 1990 and 1995. And I was fortunate enough to live through the Millennium Development Goals era. And I think the Millennium Development Goals project between 2000 and 2015 showed us that setting global targets based on consensus can be an important catalyst for change. And I think most of the credit needs to go to the UN Secretary General at the time, Mr. Kofi Annan, who had the vision to set this project. And time-bound, clear targets with indicators facilitated tracking the extent and place of achievements. And it also showed us where more investments are needed. At the same time, it highlighted some of the limitations of this approach as well, in terms of sometimes masking or sometimes enhancing inequities. So it has been a hugely important and successful project. Some of these numbers were shown earlier today in the presentations. And I think we can comfortably say that there has been huge advances in reducing maternal mortality in the last 15 years. Compared to 1990 numbers, we have made huge progress reducing maternal mortality by more than 40% globally, and in some countries even more. At the same time, we need to remember that 99% of the deaths are still happening in developing countries, and although in all regions there were reductions in maternal mortality, the sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia regions still have the lion's share of the mortality. Nigeria and India are the two largest contributors to maternal deaths worldwide. We also improved our understanding about causes of maternal deaths. And we now know that there are more deaths due to indirect causes, although the direct causes of hemorrhage, hypertensive disorders, and sepsis are still very important. In reducing child deaths, and I'm sorry this may be a little bit difficult to read, but there has been huge reductions in child deaths, and those huge reductions in child deaths now highlight the difficulties in reducing newborn deaths and stillbirths. And we now know that most of the newborn deaths are due to preterm birth or intrapartum complications and sepsis. In the past 15-16 years, in the Millennium Development Goal era, improving maternal and newborn health mostly relied on a couple of components. One big attention being skilled attendance at birth, and the second one being improving the evidence base for life-saving interventions. We heard in the conference today about oxytocin, misoprostol, magnesium sulfate, antibiotics, clindamycin, and so on and so forth. So that has been the main focus, and increasing coverage of these important essential interventions have been the focus. There have also been significant health system improvements in terms of conditional cash transfers, voucher schemes, which increased access to care in many parts of the world. Similar advances in the newborn side has been also achieved through use of CPAP, improving cord care, sepsis management, kangaroo mother care, and so on. In 2015, September, the United Nations, completing the Millennium Development Goal era, launched the Sustainable Development Goal period. And with this, the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon launched the second edition, second version of the Global Strategy for Women, Children, and Adolescents' Health. And in this renewed global strategy, there are three important themes. It's about survive, finishing the unfinished agenda in reducing, eliminating preventable deaths, thrive, improving management of complications and improving quality of life, quality of care, and transform. So these three words will guide us for the next 15 years. New targets have been set, having 2030 as the end date, and the global maternal mortality ratio target is to be less than 70 by 2030. In all countries, the target is to achieve more than 2/3 of maternal mortality reduction. And there are separate targets for countries starting with higher levels of maternal deaths and those starting with already lower levels of deaths. And there are interim milestones every 5 years on how to track the success or challenges in maternal mortality. So where does it leave us in terms of improving maternal health? We know that as maternal mortality levels are lower, the cause profiles change. We call this obstetric transition. And some of the causes that are becoming more important today are more difficult to reduce significantly. So we will have bigger challenges. With increasing focus on survive, thrive, and transform, and with increasing facility birth, we have to focus more on morbidity, and with morbidity and institutional births, we have to focus more on quality of care. And this is becoming more and more important. Unfortunately, this is not going to be easy to read, but it's a blog post from someone in India on the World Bank website. And the title reads, "Are institutional births institutionalizing deaths?" And the story is based on, starts with the story of women who died after tubal sterilization some time ago in India, but gives very striking examples of how poor quality actually leads to more suffering. So for the last 18 months or so in WHO, we have been spending time on how we can address this quality of care issue in a significant way. And acknowledging that a lot of the morbidities and mortalities occur at the time of childbirth, and this has been termed the triple return on investment. We have chosen to focus on the time around childbirth as a target period for improving quality of care for both mothers and babies. Building on the earlier work of Donna Bidian and Zoe Matthews and Louisa Halton, we developed a new quality of care framework for facility-based maternity care. And starting with the health system as the main overarching structure, we developed two distinct domains: provision of care and experience of care. And within these two distinct groups, we identified 8 domains that should be the focus of improving quality of care for mothers and children. The first one is about evidence-based practices for routine and emergency care. This is the area that we have been focusing on for the last 15, 20 years. We need to continue to focus on this area to improve the quality of care. But there are others that we need to focus on as well. The second domain is actionable information systems. If we can't measure it, we don't know what we are doing. And we have examples of countries where paper-based records have been replaced by electronic record systems. And the electronic records contain nothing. So beyond the technology, we need to understand the importance of capturing data. We need to have functional referral systems. The different layers of the health system, from primary health care to district hospitals, tertiary care, has to speak to each other. The main difference or improvement in our approach to quality of care is highlighting, in my opinion, the experience of care. And here we define three distinct domains. They may not be so distinct, but we felt that it's important to highlight them. One is effective communication, two, respect and dignity, and three, emotional support. These are critical components of good quality care, and we need to develop measures to monitor and evaluate how we are doing in this respect. And also, highlighted by Shiva this morning, we need to have competent and motivated human resources and essential physical resources to be available. We are told that about 40% of health facilities in sub-Saharan Africa do not have running water. If we don't have running water, it doesn't matter whether we have oxytocin or misoprostol, we won't be able to save lives. So these are hugely important components of good quality care. And we try to define individual and facility level outcomes that are here in terms of coverage of key practices, health outcomes like mortality, but also define and measure people-centered outcomes. Because if we can't measure, we want to know how we are doing on that front. We are also developing a framework as to how we can contribute to this agenda through our evidence-based guidelines. We have developed standards that will be published soon. We are developing indicators to go with those standards and implementation guidance for quality improvement at facilities and districts. What are the implications of all of this? I think more than ever we need to acknowledge that to reduce mortality, morbidity, and improve quality of care, we need multidimensional and multidisciplinary approaches. It's not only between doctors and midwives and nurses. We need social scientists, we need anthropologists, we need epidemiologists to get engaged with all of these processes. We need to develop a new research agenda on how we can improve experience of care. And in that front, how we can improve the maternal near-miss monitoring, implementation of companionship during childbirth, essential skills training are a couple of things that come to mind. But there are going to be other aspects like reducing sepsis and other improvements in maternal and child health. I want to thank you for your attention and hope to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.